Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar book review. This one is going to be for the Legend of Korra Art of the Animated Series Book for Balance, 2nd edition, Deluxe Edition. So again, to translate that giant title, it's the Korra Book for Art Book, the re-release that they're doing of it, updated for I guess the 10-year anniversary more or less, but specifically the Deluxe Edition, which features, of course, the art book itself, a lithograph, as you can see here in blue, and then this very nice slipcase. So this will effectively be a review of sort of both versions of the new book, because, okay, there's some slight differences to the way the actual book looks, but it's effectively the same thing. The new pages inside are the same across both editions, but that's where we're at. I'm going to try and keep this review as brief as possible, because I do feel like when I do these ones, I'm saying the same things every single time about the deluxe set, which is ultimately that, look, they are not really worth the money. The deluxe sets, the retail price is $80. The retail price of just the art book on its own is $40. The extra content, if you can even call it that, that you get by getting the deluxe set is not worth $40. Even if you take the cheaper prices you can get online of like more like say 65-ish or something like that for the deluxe set, it's still double the price of what you can get the individual book for, and I still don't think it's worth that much. Just because, like, as we'll get into it here, let's kind of break it down. First up, the slipcase itself. It's nice. Ultimately, if you're getting the deluxe set, you're getting it for this, because it's a nice way to store the book and the lithograph. You've got a cool symbol on it, so this is the 5th of 6 deluxe edition. So on this one, we have the Earth symbol, of course. Now that makes sense. It sort of is somewhat fitting with the book that we're talking about here, Korra Book for Balance. But ultimately, I believe the slipcases are more just meant to be viewed as sort of almost like a separate thing themselves. We've gone from Aang glider symbol for the Aang art book. Then we went air symbol, water symbol, fire symbol for book 3 change wasn't extremely fitting. This one is. I think it's just meant to be this case where in the middle they have the 4 element symbols. And then the next book is going to have a animal related symbol, as we will get to. The only other thing to talk about with this, other than the fact that it's more or less, the same as usual, still very nice, still very sturdy, is just that we do get the next stage of the spine image, which is the main collector's thing by getting the deluxe sets. So I'm just going to quickly cut to a brief video I recorded just before this, showing all of the 5 currently released deluxe sets next to each other, to show you how well they do actually line up. And if you're wondering how the first 5 look lined up next to each other, here they are on my shelf, because I'm not going to try and hold this mass of books up on camera. So you can see it lines up pretty nicely, as you can see there. The first one's obviously leaning a slight bit to the side because there's not much up against it, but you can see here it actually does fit together very, very well. So one more to go and this should be pretty much perfect. So far so good, so no worries about that. So as you can see, it's working quite well. No mistakes with this spine image like the omnibus editions, though they have fixed that, as I've covered in a previous video. So then we have to move inside to the rest of the content here. So first up, the lithograph. And I'm basically going to say the same thing I said about all the other ones. Very boring. I don't like that they just give you this kind of plain blue folio. There's nothing on it. It's the same color for all of the books, no matter what. And inside, it's nice. It is the clean version of the cover for the original release of the book 4 art book. It's very nice. It is just a kind of paper print, even though it's, somewhat nicely printed. But as the main extra thing, really, apart from your kind of like, basically storage box for the book, this feels like it could be a million times better than it actually is. Something that just feels and comes across as much better than it actually is. It feels like they are lucky that they had re-released most of these books and they had the option to just do that for it. Otherwise, who knows what they would have actually done. So I really personally don't value that, because unless you are going to probably like take those out and go through the effort of like framing those lithographs, I'm not sure if they're actually kind of worth all that much to you at all. Then we get to the book itself. So as you can see, new cover here, very different than the previous one, which you just saw there. So kind of cool. Just really nice shot of sort of the battle sequence right at the end of book 4. It's a Joaquim dos Santos art, I believe. So always, as ever, looks excellent. You see the foiling here. This is part of the special kind of treatment for the deluxe set, is that you do get the cover with some foiling. It is only on the Legend of Korra logo. And this again is another thing where it feels like, could you not have done it anywhere else? Like, you know, if they had the time to do it, you know, foiling here would have been nice. Just do something more than what you actually have done here, because it just leaves it feeling a bit plain. And like, I'd accept it at a cheaper price if you just had that looking normal. Like, it just feels like they're not quite. It's just become this kind of system of like, oh yeah, just foil the logo because that's the same on all the books. Whereas at least on the ATLA art book, they did a little bit of different foiling, and it just, you know, makes it feel a little bit better. Spine, you can see here, is just sort of standard Art of the Animated Series Book 4 Balance, 2nd edition. And then on the back, I do like the sort of kind of clean back here, and you get the kind of spirit portal, the central spirit portal, in this really nice kind of shape here on the back. It does make these editions sort of stand out quite nicely. And then obviously that is in comparison to the original art book, which looks like this. Of course, you had that image that is the lithograph. Spine looks a little bit different, and you get a more standard back to the book with like a barcode and stuff like that. So if I remember correctly, like the standard editions of these books, none of which of the 2nd editions that I have, is literally just this book, but it won't have foiling here, and I'm pretty sure they do some different stuff with the back. Only other thing is ribbon bookmarker. Same as all the other ones, it's just a blue ribbon bookmarker. Let me get to the page where it is. So you can see there, you get a ribbon bookmarker with this. It's blue. It's the same as all the Korra ones. The ATLA art book had a gold one. It's just another example of like the subtle little things. Even just changing the color of a few of these things. The folio case, the cover of the ribbon bookmarker would have just made it feel just that little bit better and more worth the money. As for, okay, is there any new content inside? Yes. There is a new foreword in the book. They keep the old one, but there is a new foreword in it by Seychelles Gabriel. Now, this is what they've been doing for all of the re-release art books for Korra. They had Janet Varney do one, PJ Byrne do one, David Faustino do one, and now Seychelles Gabriel does the last art book. So the 4 members of Korra's Team Avatar each do one of the forewords. The foreword is, it's nice, but it's very much just the art of Avatar is amazing. I'm so thankful to all the people I worked with on the show. Again, it's nicely written, but to try and recap it, apart from just reading it word for word, it is just a thank you. Korra was a fantastic show. It has great art. That's really it. I do not recommend buying these 2nd edition art books if you just want to read those forewords. That seems quite silly to me. And then the only other new addition is that there are 6 extra pages. But how did they use these 6 extra pages? And ultimately the answer is, like a lot of the recent ones, not particularly well. So what we get, first, 2 images of different stages of the new cover. This side. New cover in kind of production here. So it's kind of nice to see. Except it continues on. And pages 3 and 4 of the new content is another stage of it. And then it's, for some reason, the most fillery one let's just pick out the Korra, which is front and center in the main image, and just do it on her own. At not even like a different stage of art. It's just the exact same image, just like made bigger. So 4 pages just going over the new cover. And then the last 2 pages, very fitting. People are going to like this. It's obviously Korra and Asami in an image together. A kind of rougher sketch version and then more of a final sketch version from Lauren Montgomery here. The problem with these is, of course, Lauren Montgomery posted that piece of art on her Instagram like months ago. So you immediately see that they are just filling in these pages. They made the decision that we have to have some extra art. And so, especially in the recent books, all they've done is cover process stuff and let's pick out 1 or 2 notable pieces of art that the creators have posted online in the last couple of months. Because I don't even think it's that case that those were drawn specifically for this book. I think they were drawn for some sort of like auction thing that like I think Brian, Lauren, and so on were doing online. So you can sort of see that it's a second edition, but there's not much to that second edition. So in terms of a buying decision for you guys, it ultimately comes down to, do you like the idea of the deluxe set? Do you like the idea of the big spine image with all of the books together? Because that to me is the thing with the deluxe set. I don't think this is going to be too much of a draw for people, the lithographs, for the most part. The foiled covers, the ribbon bookmarker, the extra pages, I don't think in the grand scheme of things most people care that much about those things. You know, maybe there are some people out there who do frame these and that is more of a draw, but if you're keeping these sets together, probably not. So it really comes down to it. You're paying the extra for this to have a really cool display on your shelf with this Rava Vatu image when all the books come out. So, if you are a collector, then the deluxe set is probably the one that you want. That way you have everything. You have the most up-to-date version of the art book itself, and you get the extras. Now, say you are aware of the fact that you don't want the deluxe set. So your decision is basically, do you just get the original book 4 art book, or do you go for the standard edition of the new one? It effectively comes down to, in my mind, covers. Because again, like I said, sure, if you get the original, you're missing out on, you don't get the Seychelles Gabrielle forward. But again, it's just 2 paragraphs of a voice actor saying how much they like the people they work with and like the show. And 6 pieces of art, which you can see aren't even that great. And, you know, basically at least 1 or 2 of them you can find online anyway. Otherwise, the rest of the art book is exactly the same. So it's effectively choice of cover. And then I suppose maybe if you can still get this one, you might be able to find this one cheaper just because this is a new release. But that's what it really comes down to. So, otherwise, like, there's not much to say. In terms of my experience getting these deluxe books and having them arrive, it's kind of like, cool, new Avatar book. But then, like, you immediately realize that, oh, there's not much to it. I'm basically just buying this to add to my collection, not because there's any particular new content in it, and the price is far too much for what it actually is. But because I like the idea of the spine image thing, and they ultimately are notable books, I can appreciate it, ultimately. So, where does this leave us? We have 5 out of the 6 deluxe editions. Now, for some of you guys out there, you know exactly what the 6th one is. But a lot of people do ask, what is the other one? So, I'll open up this image here. This is what the next book is going to be. But I hesitate to say that with the most confidence. Even though this is a full-on new image and stuff like that, this book, Beast of the Four Nations, which will be released as a just standard book, but also as the deluxe set. And as you can see here, this is going to be the 6th one. It has the slipcase. it has the lithograph, but it is a new book for the first time in this series. So what's the deal with it? Why am I so not confident about it? Well, we learned about this book's existence about a year and a few months ago. It's not quite a year and a half, but we're getting there. But the problem is that Dark Horse, the publisher, have never once acknowledged the existence of this book. There's no listing for this book on the Dark Horse website. And while there's a listing for this book, nearly every website you will find books, you will notice that either they all have very different release dates for the book. They either don't have a release date. The book might be listed as currently unavailable, or date unknown or something like that. Or listings might not actually be up for it. And that's because ultimately the book does not have an official release date. It did initially when it first released, but we have passed most of them by. And we understand in a way why a lot of those dates didn't make a lot of sense, because the Beast of the Four Nations was announced technically before either the Book 3 or Book 4 art book 2nd edition ever got announced, when it was always, I think, going to be the last one. So the clock is ticking. Today is the comic book store release date for this book. So they have now fully released officially, 5 of the 6. Now the wait goes on for the next one. Dark Horse need to say something quite quickly. And this is where it really feels like, especially for anyone who's bought all the deluxe sets. I understand being worried about the fact that the last one, the last part of your big expensive set, is up in the air and you have no idea what's happening with it. Because it would be crazy. I don't think there's any possible way they don't release something that completes the set. But if Beast of the Four Nations, something were to happen to that book and they cancel it, I understand people being absolutely furious with Dark Horse. And so I do think there's a sense where we need to be on Dark Horse to say something about this book. Because by the looks of things, it doesn't really feel like it's going to hit sort of the usual release date that one of these books would release, which is usually about 4 months after the release of the previous one. But we have books, basically, I think all the books we're going to get for this year announced. And then it's usually 4 or maybe 6 months. It's still a possibility that it hits 6 months. But we're right on the edge of that possibility. So it looks like this one is going to be, there's going to be more of a gap until this one actually comes out. Now, there's no real way to speculate about it or anything like that. They didn't mention it at the Comic-Con panel when they perhaps could have mentioned it. So does that mean it's later on in the year or not? All I know is that I have a set of 5 deluxe books waiting for one more. And I hope it doesn't have to remain in that incomplete state for an excessively long amount of time, when the book we've known about for over a year. I'm excited for this book because it is new content from Dark Horse with one of these big books for the first time in quite a while. But we don't know anything about it specifically. We don't know how they're going to catalogue the animals, how much detail there's going to be, how much new art there's going to be. I assume there will be a lot, which is probably why it is taking quite a while. Because I don't think they're going to use screenshots from the show. So that means they either have to use some of the higher quality art that they have for certain animals, but then a lot of the animals that aren't the main cast animals are not going to have art that they want to use. So you understand that it's going to be a 200-ish page book. It needs basically that amount of new pieces of art, plus likely a lot of text and information about animals that we've never known before. So it's basically an animal encyclopedia based on what they've told us so far. So you understand why that might take a while to put together. But at least we sort of know what it is, and we're not completely in the dark. But it's a really, really weird situation with the last book. And I'm already somewhat frustrated with it. And I understand anyone else being frustrated with it as well. That Dark Horse just are so bad at communicating about things sometimes. But that has been it otherwise. If you do have any questions about the Book 4 2nd edition art book, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.